Hello and welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to be shooting with something a little bit different than I normally do. So it's a Marksman Pho-tak, or Pho-tak Marksman I should say, Synchro Flash. Person at our camera club handed me this camera. It was loaded with 400 speed film that expired back in 2008, Fuji color film. I don't know when that film was actually put into this camera, if it was put back in 2008 or if it was something fairly recent that he put in. I have noticed that just with handling the camera, already some pieces are starting to delaminate and come off. So that's a little bit of a concern. So need to be a little bit careful with handling this. So what I do know about this camera is it shoots 120 millimeter film, and it's got a 110 millimeter lens. So that's the equivalent of 48 millimeters. So roughly 50 millimeter lens. I think based on doing some internet searches, it has a shutter speed of 1/50th of a second. It does seem pretty slow. So I've wasted a few frames just to kind of figure this thing out, figure how the shutter works and what that looks like. And the shutter does appear to be pretty slow when you do press that button. I'm assuming that it's f/16 for an aperture. It would be nice if it was f/22, given the 1/50th. That would certainly put it at the sunny 16 rule if it was f/22, but I think it's going to be f/16. So to compensate for that, I have some neutral density filters. I have no way to attach those to this camera, so I'm going to try to hold those on the front when I take the shot. So my approach is going to be, I'm going to first start with the Nikon Z7 II with a 50 millimeter lens, 50 millimeter prime. Going to try to set it to the same settings and then make some adjustments, and then I have an idea of what I need to do with neutral density filters. But today it's really sunny, so I'm thinking 3-stop is probably what I'm going to try to put on this thing. I'm going to try to shoot everything in landscape as opposed to portrait mode because I think I can hold this camera a little bit more steady doing that, but we'll have to see. So anyway, this is what I'm going to be shooting with today. So I just got the film back from the developer, and it was pretty interesting that the results, the photos, as I expected, were pretty bad. A lot of camera shake, and this was due to not really knowing how the shutter on this thing worked. I saw some information that indicated that the shutter would stay open for as long as you had the shutter pressed down. So I wasn't quite sure how you got 1/50th of a second versus having it open all the time, and if it was some kind of variable thing. So that added a little bit of a challenge to it. I did end up taking a very out of focus selfie, which is what you see in the photo 8 on the screen here. And that was just to see what it was doing. Since I had no film in when I had it at the developer, I went and actually looked, pressed the shutter several times to see what it was doing, and it turns out that in fact it does not stay open when you hold it down. So I don't have to be quite so quick with pushing it down, so I think that'll help with some stability. Also made a little bit of a rig out of some wood and a tripod plate that I could go and stabilize the camera a little bit more when I take the shot. So with the next roll of film, we'll definitely be doing that. So just to kind of look at some comparisons, I think most of my assumptions were right, except it might be f11 instead of f16 because it does seem like it's a little bit bright. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. I did buy a slower speed film for the next set of experiments to see it. But when we look at, I'll just turn off the filter here, kind of look at these side by side. And let's just look at these two as an example. And let's just swap those over, and then I'll pick this one. So as we look at these two side by side, you can see that the one on the left, that's straight out of the camera raw, from the Nikon Z7 II, and the one on the right has a 3-stop filter in front of it. So I don't know if the colors are, or I should say, I don't know if the exposure is the same or not because of the issues with the expired film. In some respects, I think maybe they are. In others, I think maybe it is one stop different. And I'm just basing that on the shadows in that within the building, although it looks like, or the stage, I should say, although it looks like the center part is pretty equivalent. I also don't know if I've got some light leak issues as well, so something I need to kind of look at with the next roll, which is a fresh roll of Kodak. It's actually Kodacolor 200. It was actually, the reason for choosing that is it was the cheapest 120 film that they had at the place I had the photos developed. So that was why I bought that. And we'll just kind of see what we get with that. One other thing that was kind of interesting was looking at these photos side by side. So this was taken without any filter at all on the camera. It was a dark tunnel, so I thought that would be a good place to try to look at that. You could definitely see the difference in the exposure. This one, well, it is blurry. It doesn't seem quite as bad, a little bit of an abstract kind of thing, so maybe that's something that can work. And then finally, just from a equivalent focal length standpoint, I thought this was a pretty good indicator here because I think I was, pretty close to the same spot, and you could definitely see that what I thought was equivalent focal lengths was probably not correct. So we'll try that, be a little bit more precise this time since I'll be shooting from a tripod. And we'll just kind of see where we go from here. But all in all, even though the photos were bad, I thought it was very successful because it did allow me to validate a lot of the assumptions I was making with the camera itself. So with those questions mostly out of the way, we'll see what we get with this next set. So let's head out now and do some more experimenting. Hopefully the wind isn't too bad, but you can see I've got this this wooden rig I made for this camera to try to hold it still, and we'll just kind of see how that works. It's just some little doweling and that's on there. So what we're doing is just photographing the sign to the skate park and a little bit of the ramps behind. So I think that could make kind of an interesting shot with this. Completely blue sky, so not much going on up there. So not necessarily the greatest image, but this will definitely be a great test for this. I'm going to do this in 2 shots, one without a filter, and then one I'm going to hold a 2-stop in front of it. And with everything being on that platform, it should be a lot more stable. Looking at this first shot, this is without the filter. And first thing I notice is it looks like there are a lot of light leaks in this camera since this is fresh 200 speed Kodak film. But I do like the fact that it is stable. When I look at it, it's relatively sharp, and that seems to be the best I can hope for with this camera. So now let's look at the one with the 2-stop filter. And as I look at this, I do see that I think my assumptions are pretty much right on for what I think the camera is set up for with 1/50th of a second and f11. So based on that, the shots I have going forward, that's how I'm going to plan on shooting everything. So I have one last test that I want to do, and that is see how close I can get with this camera, and then I'll get this roll developed. So I did the stability test using the platform, and now the distance test, see how close I can get. And between those two things, at that point I should have things pretty well dialed in. So the whole idea here is I've measured out 4 feet from where the camera is to the side of the building, and then I'm just going to just photograph basically right here to see what that looks like. So I'm going to do that at 4 feet 6 feet, 8 feet. When I take the last shot, I'm going to then take out my Nikon and play with some different focal lengths to see what the focal length equivalent really is. I thought it was 48. It's definitely not. It's something longer. I think it's probably closer to 70 millimeters, but we'll test that. And so we'll do a bunch of different focal lengths from the final position, and we'll see which one looks the closest. And then that's what I'm going to base the next couple of rolls of film on that I run through this camera. The 4-foot actually looks pretty good. So this is a little bit closer than what it was kind of indicating when I did some Google searches, but I wasn't able to find anything specific on this camera, just basically on the Pho-tak in general. Moving to 6 feet, this also looks reasonable. Now, if you do zoom in 100%, they do lose a little bit of sharpness, but I think that's just the nature of the lens. I don't think it has anything to do with the camera. And then at 8 foot, it looks really good too. So I think based on that, I don't really need to worry about how far away I am from my subject. The other thing that I did discover is that it does turn out, it is about 50 millimeters for the focal length when I compared it to what I did with the Nikon. The problem is the viewfinder really limits. You only see about 2/3 of the actual photo. So I just need to remember that when I'm shooting to just allow for a lot more area. Well, I think we're at the point where we're actually going to take some photos with the Pho-tak, and this will be the set that I turn over to the person. Actually, I'll give them all the photos, but this will be the quote-unquote good set. They're not going to be great. As you saw, there's a lot of light leaks and some other things. I'm going to walk around Stillwater, find some different things to photograph, and get my 8 shots, get them developed, and that'll be the final set for this camera. Today I've got perfect conditions for this one. Of course, it wouldn't be Stillwater if you didn't get a shot of the Stillwater lift bridge. After all, that is the photo that's on the sign as you enter into town. So I think that'll be another sort of classic vintage photo to put on. So here's the shot. So the first thing that I notice is definitely having this very overcast day, my light leak issues seem to have resolved themselves, or maybe I did a better job of closing the back of the camera. I'm not quite sure. But at any rate, a little washed out, which, had I used a one-stop filter, I think that would have solved that. It would have been a little bit closer, but in general, pretty happy with that. One thing that I did notice is when I was looking through the viewfinder, that center part of the bridge was pretty much all that was in the frame. So there is a lot of additional stuff that you just don't see through the viewfinder. So definitely a challenge with this camera. Grain elevator seems like it'd be another pretty nice subject. I do wish that some of the other stuff, some of the signs in that weren't there, but still kind of a feature of Stillwater. So I think that'll make for a pretty nice shot as well. Similar to the last shot, this one also is a little bit blown out, or a little bit bright, I should say. Not really blown out, but definitely 1 or 2 stops brighter than I would like. But overall, not too bad. Again, a lot more of the frame than what I was expecting from looking in the viewfinder. And here are the other shots that I took around the town. So that was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed seeing what I was able to capture and the process I went through at trying to figure out the Pho-tak Marksman. I did buy an Eagle Eye, also made by Pho-tak. This one seems to have a faster shutter, so I think that'll help a little bit. I don't know when I will get around to doing a video with that one, if I do make a video with it, but I'm definitely going to play with it. Having these kind of constraints are things that I find are kind of fun. As always, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you'd like to know about more, subscribe. And if you'd like to see another video I made about a year ago on shooting with a constraint, in this case it was forcing myself to shoot black and white or monochrome, then check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. Bye.